Alrighty then, everybody. Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. Hello, everybody out there on this Friday, June 10th of 2022. Before we get anything fun, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes, spread this word of mouth, and go find us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. Now, any astute listeners that have been trying to stay faithful, if you hadn't noticed, we're 2 days late. Reason being, Dave was basically on his deathbed for a full day of Wednesday. And no, people, just so we know, it was not COVID. David, I don't think it was COVID. Was it COVID, Dave?
I didn't get tested.
So it wasn't COVID. Because contrary to popular belief that people are starting to find out again, there are other illnesses in the world. It's not just the vid. So, Dave, you're back and better than ever. How are you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm not bad. Now it's same old. So, I mean, I'm still a little congested, but that's it.
I feel like that's like the state of humanity right now after COVID and staying inside for 17 years. Everyone's just like congested 24/7 because it's like the air. We have air. So I think that's just the way it is right now, Dave. Everyone's just congested. You're not special. You are not special.
Funny enough, I worked a job where I couldn't stay inside all of COVID. So that really didn't happen for me. I'm not going to lie to you.
Nah, you jobber. You're a jobber. Anyway, we have a fun-filled episode for you today. It's a late episode, but it's something we would have talked about Wednesday anyway if we were going to chit-chat, because it's something that is a fairly big deal to both David and I. So Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire put out, I think, one of the most important documentaries, and this is on the heel of a massive Dinesh D'Souza documentary. I kind of feel bad for Dinesh on this, Dave, because 3 weeks ago, Dinesh D'Souza released 2,000 Mules. Might be a little further than that. Maybe a month ago.
2 months.
Maybe a month or two. 2,000 Mules was released when he did a pretty deep dive into mules and election fraud and everything, just to kind of give evidence and hopefully give the government the reason to go in and look at it. They're not going to, but Dinesh did that. And it's not too long later, because I had a lot of success. Not too long later, after 2,000 Mules, though, Matt Walsh releases his documentary with the Daily Wire called What is a Woman? And it is, Dave, I thought it was one of the better documentaries that I've seen in a long time. And I think it's one that whether you're on the side of evil or you're on the side of good, you probably should watch this, because if you're kind of teetering and being an evil leftist, it might make you look around and say, hey, my ideas are stupid, because these people are supposed to be the people leading the charge, and they can't even answer what is a woman. Dave, you said you watched this before I did, and you told me when you came out of it, you were entertained because it was a good documentary, but you were angry. What made you angry about finishing this documentary?
Well, I just want to hit one first on one thing before I get to that.
Go for it.
I'm stealing this from Blair White, by the way, but Blair White had said that with this documentary coming out only on Daily Wire and having to pay for Daily Wire, I mean, maybe you could find a way to illegally stream it. You can find a way to legally stream anything, but with having to pay for Daily Wire, those who aren't even a leftist, but really don't want to pay to watch something wherever they are in the political leanings, may not even try to watch this.
It's kind of made for the echo chamber in a way.
Well, yes. Well, the thing is, it's like, I completely understand Daily Wire wants to make money. I completely understand that. But also, if it's so important, and I saw this before, even on Twitter, if it's that important, and I do think it is an important documentary, you should be able to make it free, or at least put it on other things. I wouldn't have minded if they did okay for like the first month, subscribers only, but then afterwards, anyone can watch it.
The Daily Wire needs to take their hint from The Blaze a little bit with Glenn Beck and what The Blaze does. They want subscribers, and they have a ton of them. But you can get basically every single one of their specials, every single one of their episodes through their YouTube or their Rumble. They don't paywall you completely. They want your subscription. The Blaze has a ton of subscribers. Dave, I don't know if you're still subscribed, but you were for a long time.
And I am.
You still are. So Dave's still with The Blaze. But And the thing is, like, if you want to watch, Glenn Beck does a Wednesday special and a Friday special. I don't know if he does the Fridays anymore, but he always does a Wednesday special. You can catch every single Wednesday special that night. I think it goes on live on YouTube. And then that night, besides a few where he's like, YouTube is not going to allow me to have this.
It's a little
on.
too spicy for
like,
YouTube.
I can't have this on there. Therefore, it will not be on my YouTube. This is going to only be a Blaze subscriber, only one. But that is kind of what Daily Wire needs to do. And I really like, I think you had a good idea. This was a big hit. Those on Daily Wire. And I know a lot of people said they got Daily Wire, they subscribed just to watch this because it was a big deal. But now that you've done that, it's been, what did it come out the 1st? I think it came out June 1st. It's been probably 10 days since that's come out ish. This is kind of probably its peak. You're going to get everyone from the right echo chamber that has watched it, everyone that pays attention on Twitter, to all the blue checks that said, go out and watch this, it's important, yada, yada. They're done now. All the people that wanted to watch this on the right that actively seeked it have watched it. Their whole entire, tell all your friends to watch it. Like you said, Dave, it doesn't work unless they have a Daily Wire. So at this point, what the Wire needs to do is say, hey, you don't need to have the Daily Wire anymore. Go on the website, go on our YouTube. We'll have it on there for free. Go on Rumble if you don't want it on YouTube for free. You can now watch it because it is that important. And that's something they need to do, because I do believe that this is a truly important documentary because, it's a fundamental question and it's a very simple question to answer. But if you watch the whole entire hour, 40 minutes of this documentary, the leading thinkers on the left, and this is completely going at the trans movement. It's not even hiding the fact that it is.
You come in knowing what it is, what it's about.
It's not hiding the fact, and it's not necessarily the trans movement itself.
Trans activists
too, but I will say this: no one on the right gives a absolute fuck if you are a transsexual. Nobody cares. What we do care about is when you are pushing it, not even on adults, on children. That is when the line gets crossed, when you're pushing your bullshit on kids. And, now the right after the Uvalde shooting is like, they care more about books than safety of kids. And it's just so morally bankrupt of an argument for them to make that. I see it being made constantly. So it's a documentary that goes at it. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about any of the parts in the documentary that kind of stuck out to you? Because all the interviews kind of pissed me off, but is there anyone that really burned you a little bit?
So there's the interviews with some of the crazy, I'm going to say crazy.
They're fucking crazy.
The gender affirming therapists. There's specifically 2. I don't know their names, and I'm not going to say their names. There's no reason to, but you've probably seen clips of them if you follow anyone basically conservative on Twitter at all. Mm-hmm. And their answers are so out there, but they're also very good to listen to understand the movement where it is. Now, one other clip that was very funny was when he was talking to the African tribe. I've actually been trying to find which African tribe it was. But goddamn, he tweets so much that I cannot find which one it was.
It was really funny.
But it was funny because they have no idea about what's going on in the Western world, and they're so goddamn confused about it.
They were laughing hysterically when they were like, when he's flat out asking the guy and he translates for an elder, but what if a man wants to be a woman? And the elder flat out said, no, men have dicks. Yeah. Women have breasts. Like, that was the translation. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's that simple. Keep going, Dave.
But I feel like not only the most powerful, but the most important interview in that whole documentary is the one, yet again,
Scott, I can't remember his name.
Can't find a name for TRE Voices.
Yes.
Capital TRE
Voices
on Twitter. But that he was the number one interview, at least for me, in that documentary, because at 42, I believe he had transitioned over to a man. And he basically gives a story of the complications that he has had.
Scott Nugent. is his
Scott
name.
Nugent. Yeah.
And it is capital TR under lowercase e, capital V voices.
Yep.
And that's what, and it's an organization where transgender people can help to inform kids and parents about transgenderism if they're thinking of doing it, and about the dangers of this transition.
And the thing is that you hear from this person who has undergone transition, has 3 kids, but felt like it was right for them at 42. And there were complications that even they didn't know about going into it.
Yep.
That has happened to them, the infections that they've had. And Scott says that he'll probably die from them. And it is really, really hard to not get a little upset listening to the way Scott is talking about these things that they're going through. But the biggest issue that they're hitting on is that this can happen, and probably will happen to children if you just go ahead and affirm whatever they're saying and do any type of these surgeries on children. Even if they're 15, they're still children. So, and that's the issue here, is that when you're an adult, you can make these choices. And the thing is, even when you're making these choices like Scott did, if you're not told everything that could happen, if you're hung out to dry like he apparently was with the things that have gone on after surgery, those are big issues that you now have to face as an adult, as someone who's at least had more of a foundation in your life. At least you should have more. As a kid, if you're going through these issues after a surgery, that's a lot more of an effect on you than it is as an adult. And I mean, just on the basis of it, we've talked about this before. I don't believe kids should be having this anyway. Your body has not gone through what it's supposed to go through. So you're in a point of change, and you want to change that point of change. You're not going to cement yourself any further that way. You at least need to go through the process of puberty in order to understand where your body's at. And I know it's much more difficult to just say it than to feel it. I can't even understand what it would mean to feel that way. No. But for me, if you're trying to change something where you're already going through this kind of metamorphosis in your body that everyone goes through, you're just going to mix up the path further. After puberty is where I think people should actually be thinking about this, should actually go towards something like this.
At least 18. At least 18.
And the thing is, they need to be told what could happen here, because there is a lot of problems that could pop up in the future. And I do want to say this. There are plenty of people that have gone through transition, and it has worked for them. It has worked for them, and they feel good. And when I say people, I mean adults.
We have to see 7 to 10 years after, because like Scott Nugent said, it is the highest suicide rate of any surgery 7 to 10 years after. It is I think it's like a 40-something% suicide rate. It is outrageous.
Yes.
And this is for adults.
But that's the thing. I'm saying at least for adults, it has worked out for them, but that's after a long process of figuring out what you think you need to do to get this feeling, at least feeling a little better. For a kid, it's not going to work out that way. At least not quickly. If you'll probably get lucky if through all that change, you can find some kind of foundation. I just don't think it'll happen.
It's impossible to find a foundation for a kid, because for a kid going through that, more than likely they are homosexual. That is usually the answer. More than likely, if they are truly going through that, they are homosexual, number one. Number two, if they're not, it stems from gender dysphoria, because even truly transsexual people are still gender dysphoric. That is the medical terminology for what they are. Now, for it to be happening to a kid, it can cause a lot of problems. Dave, one of the things that struck me, you talked about the pediatricians that they talk to. One of the ones who, she's kind of like the flowery pediatrician.
I don't want the blue hair. It was like, you could pause puberty.
Yeah, well, where she's like, you can pause and you can do this. One of the things, the end of the interview was what got me with her because she was bonkers as it is. You can pause puberty. You can do this. We like to be inclusive. No, we affirm whether the parent it was funny because she was the textbook leftist, female, white, liberal leftist that everyone makes fun of. Even leftists make fun of those type of women. So one of the things that when she got flustered at the end of the interview, because what came out and what Matt Walsh talked about, which I didn't know about, is one of the drugs that they use as puberty blockers.
Lupron.
I just looked it up. Okay. Lupron. It is the same drug that is used to chemically castrate pedophiles. So when it's a lie when they say that puberty blockers can be reversed. They cannot be reversed. You are chemically castrating your child. And if your male child wants to transition to a female or vice versa, I think it works both ways. You are now castrating this individual, making them infertile. Now, whether or not that's the goal for this movement is to make less humans, who knows? But it's an intentional lie because if you're a medical doctor and you're prescribing this, you know what it does. You understand what it does. And the fact that this is not a huge lawsuit and that more people should be suing these pediatricians for doing this to these kids outside of the parents and family. There should be something because the kids are not old enough to actually consent. And the parents should be taken up for child abuse for allowing this to happen. There's no doubt in my mind. If you allow your child to start a transition anytime, outside of counseling and transitioning from, whatever, they want to wear different clothes, makeup, do all this other stuff. They want to do superficial things, fine. Once it starts affecting the bodily makeup under 18, that's child abuse in my eyes. Because I don't know. I think the earliest you could probably start doing is maybe 16. If they really didn't do here's the thing with that, Dave. If they come to you at 8, 6, 7 years old and they start saying it and they start living that lifestyle and genuinely live it, and they come to their 16, 14, whatever, high school age, and they've been doing this now for 8 years, 6 years, 7 years, and it just keeps getting stronger. They come to you as a parent and say, listen, I'm tortured now. I've been doing this. I've done what you've asked. Please. Then it's a conversation to be had because then maybe it's a legitimate thing. If you put them through the gender dysphoria counseling therapist, this and that, and they still are that way. Some people are that way and that's acceptable. But just to transition them because they're a 4-year-old and they say, I like to be a boy on Thursdays, that's not the right way to do it. That's kind of my loophole into my stance there because I get it. I'm with you, Dave. There's no such thing as a trans child. It's just child abuse. I'm with you. But at the same time, there are extenuating circumstances. So
very rare extenuating circumstances.
Yes,
I can
kind of acknowledge them.
The thing is, I can kind of see the loophole for me. I mean, I don't have kids. I want them, but I don't have kids. You do. For me, if that were to happen, you come to me at 16, no doubt have a conversation. I mean, I would have conversations before that if this is a genuine issue.
Yeah.
And no doubt have a genuine conversation because, and you've talked about it more from honestly the male side. What's getting to me is that this is happening to a lot of girls.
Yes.
It's happening to boys, but nowhere near the quantity that's happening to the girls. And the issue for me is that it seems like something like top surgery almost seems in vogue and almost seems like it's the type of thing that they're kind of swinging like it's not a big deal, at least with some surgeons that will do it to brag about it on TikTok.
Well, because they can get breast implants later if they want.
Well, and that's the big thing for me. And that's a thought that goes through my head with, especially with your hypothetical situation, is that if my daughter comes to me at 16, even going through all of that, I would rather find any other way to try to make them understand how permanent that is, how genuinely permanent that is. Because listen, like I said, I don't know how it feels. I don't. But doing things to your body like that changes you forever. Changes you forever. And I don't know. For me, it would need a very, very deep thinking that I am not entirely certain, even through all those years, someone of that age could really get to a conclusive argument and a conclusive reason for why they need to do it. Now, then again, that might not be the best way to look at it, because their brain is clouded. They might not be able to make that decision in any facet of their life. And I can understand that. But for me, under my household, I would not want to do that to allow that to happen to my child, knowing the scarring that could happen from doing that to your body. That's why I'm better with 18, because at least you're an adult in the country's eyes. At least you're an adult. I'm better with 18, even though that is arbitrary. I'm still better with it. But to me, these things are permanent, man. These things have a lot of effect on you in the future, and you can't just get them back. And maybe it's because I've been reading like D-trans stories and stuff like that, and those are absolutely harrowing. Absolutely harrowing, because you've gone from one extreme point where you feel like you're in the wrong body to maybe it was social pressure, or maybe you just felt like you were in the wrong body. But either way, you make the transition, and now you're at a point where, I mean, some of them are like, I miss my breasts. Some of them are like, I miss this thing, or my voice is forever going to be this low, or is it going to forever? And they hate their body all over again. Like you've almost done nothing to fix the problem. For some of the times they haven't. A lot of the times they haven't. A lot of the times that's not the fix. And that's the thing. And like I said, I don't want this to be a completely one-sided bashing, because I said, there are people who have gone through transition, and it at least has helped them in some sense. They at least feel a little bit better to tackle things the way they need to. Go ahead.
I just want to, I'll let you complete your thought, and then I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. So go ahead. Yeah,
but they feel better to tackle the things that they need to. They don't have to worry as much of being in the wrong body and being born in the wrong gender or sex, however they feel. So, and that's why I don't want it to be a completely one-sided bashing, because I mean, we're already talking about the documentary, and that's what it is.
It is a bashing. Yep.
But that's the thing. I don't want it to be completely one-sided, but for me, it's just these things that are happening to kids, whether you're 12 to 16, it's still happening to kids that will permanently scar them. And I just do not believe they are of the right mindset to make that choice.
Now, one of the things I was thinking about, because, that is true that it's happening to girls, young girls, a lot more often. They're trying to push this on young girls a lot more. One of the things that popped up in my head, we've been, I think a lot of us have been outraged. We've seen the videos of the kids being taken to the drag show over in the 21 bar, where in the back it's plastered, it won't lick itself. And there's 5, 6, 7-year-olds, 2-year-olds, infants in this bar watching this shit. And we talked about drag queen story time. Do you think that there's less of a push to do this to men and girls because they have had that outlet forever? The gay men have had the outlet of dressing up as women forever. They do it all the time. Being a drag queen is a common thing, but they're not fully transitioned. A lot of them, they go in there, they dress up, they do their thing.
Well, that's because drag queen's different.
But I agree. But women have never had that outlet. You don't have your butch women shows. You don't have your shows of more manly women that are coming out and doing, like, they don't do their Magic Mike moments. That's not a big thing. So, and we've seen a lot less of that push because but it's different. But your drag queens are definitely on the side of the trans people, because a lot of them still feel like they're women. They just dress up as it, and they feel very feminine in the time, and they're very accepted in that way in their community. So do you think it's less, I don't know if there's more devious things, but do you think there's less of a push on guys? Because even if it's a gay man or a trans man, they've had that option forever. Men have had that option. Gay men have had that option of being a woman for a night all the time since the beginning of homosexuality.
So I think I think it is less. It's not even less of a push on guys. I think it affects guys less, mainly because while men are social animals, we are social animals of a different kind. We do not.
Your autism scale.
Exactly.
Men.
Well, yeah, we do not.
We got to do a whole episode on the scale.
generally, as a group, we don't look for acceptance in the same way that girls do.
No, yeah, you're right.
Boys look for acceptance by, oh, I can run to that tree faster than you can. That's the dumb way to do it. But
do you also think there's less confusion for guys in puberty? It's a confusing time for everybody. But our bodies, we're growing ball hair. We're getting hair in different places. Our penises are getting a little bit bigger. Most of us, maybe not me, but most of us are getting. Women go through a shit ton of change because they're becoming able to have kids, and their body completely and totally does chemical full whole scale changes through puberty. I think more than men. Men kind of just grow and get bigger and get stronger.
Their bodies change. Their bodies change differently. Because I feel like just saying men grow stronger kind of simplifies it a little too much. Because let's be honest here, when you're going through puberty as a guy, some of those muscles that you're gaining there is very different, especially if you are not keeping in any kind of shape. You get big very, very easily. But
there is something to be said about man strength versus boy strength. You can 100%. Have the same size kid and 100%. The same size guy, and that guy's stronger than him just because man strength is a thing. Once you finish puberty, strength is a thing.
Especially old man strength.
Old man strength, just grip strength is 100% different.
Yes, 100%. I don't disagree. But that's the thing, is that it's different changes. And the way a woman's body changes is very different from the way the man's body changes, because you're growing things in different areas for women. You're going through you're getting your period, like you're literally bleeding, and
you can't keep up with boys athletically anymore most of the time after that. Before that, girls can kind of keep up. I'm saying physically it changes in that way too.
But like you're going through a lot of very confusing things as a woman at that time.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, it's a very different way of confusion. Yep. And my thing is that, like I said, the acceptance is different. Men look towards very weirdly object oriented way to accept people, accept other men generally. Women are very socially in the emotional space. They accept in the emotional space. So if there are more of your friends doing something, you are most likely going to want to join into that thing, especially if it feels like you'll be accepted in that. And it's not, yet again, generally, it's not to say that guys won't do that, because guys will do that, but not in the same vein that girls do.
We go along with it in different ways because for the most part, men are always trying to figure out the hierarchy. They're always trying to out alpha each other. Yes. The groups are out alphaing, and you kind of follow what that current alpha is doing, but that shift could always happen. There's always that lower rung kind of loser trying to fit in every group, and they will never be alpha. But every other guy in there is competing where, like you said, women are competing in a different way. They're all trying to connect.
Yes.
It was trying to make a connection instead of a competition where men are in constant, even today, even when you go to work, you're friends with your guys, but you're still trying to beat them at everything and stupid shit too. You challenge each other like, I could drink this drink faster and but it's a legitimate competition to both of you at that moment.
Exactly. and I mean, not to get too much into cultural pushes, and people can be mad at me for this. It feels like we have taken the time to culturally push down men in a very traditional sense. Not to say that we have to get to every traditional man, the man culture that we've had, but we have pushed them away from a lot of their masculine traits. And we have placed women into a spot where not only does it seem like we're supporting them to go towards those masculine traits, but that they should be going towards those masculine traits.
Equity, Dave.
It's not. And I feel like that's also an issue here.
Yes.
Is that we don't, And I feel like it really rounds the corner to the question of what is a woman. You asked,
Dave, let me ask you, what is your definition of what a woman is?
Biologically adult human female, 2 X's. Now, if you want to get into a very social sense, you want to talk about the qualities of a woman. You want to talk about loyalty. You want to talk about gentle.
Do you believe gender is a construct? Are you the type of person, or do you kind of put gender and sex in the same category?
I mainly put gender and sex in the same category. And I did not do that at one point because it made a little bit more sense before. But hearing the way it made a little bit more sense to say the sex is biological, gender is more of a construct before, when I've heard that argument first. But now I don't as much, for the main reason is that most of the time when I hear these arguments about gender being a social construct, it's actually about someone's characterizations and someone's personality. And that is not gender for me. That is just you as an individual person.
Jordan Peterson puts it that perfect way.
Yeah. And
it's personality traits.
Yeah. And I wasn't, believe me, I wasn't trying to steal that from Jordan Peterson. That's just something
it's okay to steal a lot of things from Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, but that's just something that I've heard from it. That's just something I've actually thought of myself. I listen, I say when I steal stuff from people. So, but that's the thing, is that, and you could sit here and actually have a conversation. Okay. Like, what is a man in a cultural sense? What do you think describes a man? What do you think the qualities are of a man?
See, you can't.
What do you
think? To me, you can't do that. You can't do that, because
not with someone who is arguing in bad faith.
But even with them, you can't do it. And this is kind of what Matt Walsh does. And there's a gender studies professor that he kind of pins down in this.
Yes.
Because he said he's trying to get to the truth.
Yes.
And he's using the truth as, he's like, you're using it as a, it's not, I don't like that term, because they can't sit there and say what the truth is. Because in order to know what a woman is, if you're saying gender is cultural and a woman is what you want to be, you have to have a basis and understanding for what you're trying to aim for. How do you know what a woman is unless you don't know what to aim for, what qualities to aim for, or what a man is and the qualities that you're aiming for? So there has to be a binary there, and there has to be an opposition there in order for you to aim for one or the other. It's not an arbitrary thing. We understand that. I know you're not saying it, but you're kind of saying that it could be a social construct, and it can't. There's not a possible way. There is only 2 genders. There is only 2 sexes. Everything else, maybe subgenders. They don't want to get it called this, but maybe you can call them a subgender or a subsex. That might be it, because they're a branch off the norm. And that's honestly what it is, because, again, when they're saying every answer that he got, Matt Walsh asked every single person he interviewed, what is a woman? And all the leftists gave identical answers. If they feel that they're a woman, then they are a woman. What the fuck does that mean? It's because they know inside that gender and sex are binary, that there is 2 opposite sexes, because you would not know what a woman is unless you understood the basis of what a woman is, what a woman should be. And that is universal around the world, what a woman and what a man is. Women come in all shapes and sizes. Men come in all shapes and sizes. There are very manly women. There are very feminine women. There are very feminine women and manly men. And there's somewhere in between.
Yes.
And just because there's differences in the sexes themselves, where some come closer to the others, doesn't mean they ever cross over. It never happens. So that's what annoys me about whenever anybody tells me gender is social, whenever anybody tells me gender is anything different than sex, they're lying. They're lying, or they're confused and they've been lied to. That's the 2 options, because you cannot, unless you know what a man and a woman is, you wouldn't know how to aim for one. That's like, you couldn't transition from a man to a woman unless you knew what to go for, unless there was a basis for what a woman is. Not just that you feel it. Okay, how do you know that's what a woman feels like if it hasn't already been defined? Like he calls him out for circular
logic,
circular defining. The one word when you're defining a word is you can never use the word in the definition. So when you ask what is a woman, you can't say a woman is whatever is a woman. That's bullshit. You can't say that. So that's what annoys me. And that's kind of, I wasn't annoyed by it because I expected it from all the leftists to not give a real answer, because they can't. If they give a real answer, their whole movement's fucked. Their whole theory is fucked, because they all argue that there's no binary. And which is why the queer movement and the gender studies movement is at war with the true feminist movement. Your J.K. Rowling, who was a darling to the left for the longest time because she made Dumbledore gay, and that was LGBTQ was like, yes, queen. You made a guy who has no bearing whatsoever whether he's homosexual or not a homosexual. Great for him. He has no partner. That sucks. But all of a sudden, when they started talking about, trans stuff, and she's like, nope, I'm pretty sure my women are women, men are men, boom, she's now a TERF. They created a whole new category on leftists to fight amongst each other, because true feminists are now the enemy. Women who speak in a binary are the enemy. But what these leftists don't understand is they all speak in a binary. They all do, because you have to compare something to something else. There is no nothingness. There is no just is. The only reason why we know how things exist is because we compare them to other things. So that's what it annoyed me. I expected it, but just that whole entire thing, just that always fucking pisses me off when it's like, oh, gender is a social construct. It isn't. It isn't. You want to say race is a construct? Kind of, not really, because if you don't want to say black and white, you could just break it off from cultures, because the African culture is very different from the European culture. And we have a sect of the white European culture in America amongst a lot of our white people. And the black people in this country have a very different American culture. So if you want to talk about the dark American culture is generally different than the pasty ass white culture or pasty ass American culture, if you don't want to say race. But there is always differences. I got that annoyed me. That annoyed me, Dave. I got into that one.
No, that's fine. I was letting you go if you didn't notice.
You did. I did. And I knew you weren't going to stop me, but it's just so morally bankrupt to argue otherwise, because there's no way to defend it. There's no way to defend. You don't know what a woman, if you can't actually define a woman, then how can you aim to become one?
See, it's really funny. I think this is why I hate academics so much, is because I do like theorizing and playing about things, but I wouldn't fucking put that on a person's kid. Here's the difference. There's no
theory here, though.
No. I'm just saying
there isn't even a theory to be had.
I'm just saying I enjoy playing with things and just fucking around. And even if you just want to say, okay, what is a woman? List out the qualities. Just do it, and go through it. Because you're going to get a lot of similar qualities from people, but you will get different qualities from other people. But that's the fun part of it for me. Again, because like I said, I like going over things. I like digging deep down into topics when they're brought up, because I don't know. I'm a guy. I go after the shiny object that is the idea that's there. So, but that's like that. I believe he was a dean of the Gender Studies College.
Yes, he was a university dean over, was it BU or Boston College? It was in Boston.
I'm not sure if it was BU.
It was one of the Bostons, one of the big Bostons.
Yeah, but either way. But that's why I don't like these people so much, is because you can, for me, it's always been fun to argue about things, to try to dig into things, whether you can even go into it knowing like, oh, this is probably pretty damn wrong, but let's see where the hell it gets me. And you could do that. And I find that to be a lot of fun, especially arguing with people. But the issue that we have now is that these academics actually think that they're really that intelligent when they're not.
Well, they buy into the whole entire, they buy into the whole entire truth system, your truth, my truth, and what Matt Walsh was trying to get at. And he was like, I want the truth. And that's when this academic was like, I don't like where that's going. What do you mean you don't like where that's going? It's because you're academically bankrupt.
Yes. Yeah.
And you talked about how the peer review system is bullshit.
Yeah. And we could dig down, but we don't need to, because I just feel like it would go a little bit too off topic. We can dig down. It's a lot of linguistic games that they play. It's a lot of linguistic games that they play.
That's postmodernist type of bullshit.
My truth? What is that? It's just someone's perception. That's all it is. You're just saying perception. It's a fucking
story. It's an anecdote. That's all it is. It's an anecdote.
But you're just saying perception. That's the word that you're using. Mm-hmm. It's not truth. It's my perception. Mm-hmm. What am I perceiving from my vantage point? That's all it is. But they use my truth to make it sound more powerful, to make it sound like, oh, it's something that is so near and dear to them that if you take it away, you are taking their existence. Yet again, existence, something they use that is not what they actually mean. They're using it to drive at your empathy. But overall, getting back to what is a woman, there are plenty of interviews there. We've given some of our hardest hitting ones, but I will say, overall, it's not just interview blackout to interview, blackout to interview. It's actually, I think it's well done. It's put into like a story form. He's trying to have a little bit of fun with it, and I think he does pretty well with it.
That's Matt Walsh's style and everything.
Yeah, and especially, I don't know how he does it, but he keeps like the perfect straight face with his stupid facial hair.
He looks like a stupid lumberjack, not even like a burly one, just like a weak lumberjack.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, Matt Walsh. We like you here.
but he tries to have fun with it.
Yeah,
at least. And he tries to make a story out of it. And overall, I think it is worth watching it. I think it is worth seeing these interviews. Honestly, if you see a good amount of clips on Twitter, you might not even need to see a lot of it, because a lot of the clips that came out encompass a good amount of the movie. So, but there are small things in there that I think it is good to watch. I mean, he goes to a women's march and he asks them, what is a woman? And yet again, stealing from Blair White, I'm sure there are people there that actually did answer the question. But the issue is that even with the ones he showed, there shouldn't be this hesitation, especially among women that are there for the women's march, to answer the question, what is a woman? There's no reason to hesitate and then give some answer that you can see they don't really want to get. They don't know exactly what they're saying.
If you're on the left, you live in a world of confusion because you don't know what you're allowed to say and what you're not allowed to say. That's the problem. They know what a woman is. They just know that they're not allowed to say it. So they're trying to think of a way to phrase it where they're not going to offend any of the different groups that they could offend. Mm-hmm. So if you're on the left and you're a leftist, that's the world you live in right now, a world of constant confusion, which is why they hate people like Bill Maher right now. Because Bill Maher is a leftist. The man is on the left, but he is tired of playing the games. He's just tired of it, and he's going to call him out. And he has enough clout and enough security on HBO to be able to do that. Not everyone on the left that feels the same way that he does can do that. So, we'll close this out. We did touch on a lot of the big takeaways. To me, the Lupron one is a massive takeaway where you're chemically castrating your kids. Really think about that. If you're thinking of puberty blockers and you're chemically castrating your kids by doing it, to the point where the pediatrician admits she's giving the Lupron, and then when he brings that up, she ends the interview. They're dishonest. There's a lot of dishonesty going on in this movie. And again, David and I sympathize with the children that are going through these things. And after 2 years of being locked in your room with nothing, going through puberty or just being young in general, you're confused as it is growing up. And you use your social interactions, your parents, your teachers to guide you and help you grow up. They didn't have that for 2 straight years. Now, with the current school system, maybe it was better that they weren't there for 2 more years to get turned into little mini activists. But overall, that's a great part of growing up. Being with your friends in school, being with your favorite teachers that you can turn to and talk to. So that 2 years of that being taken away from them, they come back to wear masks. They don't know if they're going to stay in school. They don't know if they're going to go back to being virtual. So while still growing up, while still going through all these changes, especially the kids in puberty, now they're faced with uncertainty. A bunch of them are going through depression because they weren't allowed to see their friends for over a year. And that's a huge part of growing up, having friend circles. And they've just been scared to death. Add to that, they've been fed a bunch of bullshit on climate change. Add to that, you now have teachers pushing the LGBTQ agenda in their face when they're just freshly getting back. There is so much going against our kids right now. And they're just extremely confused and they need this time. So I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but It has a lot to do with What is a Woman, because it's affecting our kids more than anything. It's affecting our little girls more than anything. What is going on with the trans movement? And honestly, Daily Wire, you're never going to listen to us, but if you do, please make that free. You guys probably made a ton of money. You got a ton of subscriptions. You will get more subscribers off of this, even if you make it free, because it is a very good documentary. You will get people that will watch this for free and say, I'm going to give my money to this company because Matt Walsh is a very good person and that he made this documentary, and I'm very happy he did it. So please make it free. And if not, if you have a Daily Wire subscription, please let out your password to all your friends. Just Netflix the fuck out of them so people can watch us, because it needs to be watched, because it is an important documentary. Dave, anything before we close out?
I want people to remember that you always hear from those on the left, and honestly, I really do hate using that term.
Oh, I say leftist. I say leftist.
Yeah. You always hear from leftists that they want to have a conversation, that they want to start a conversation on something. And funny enough, really what this documentary does.
It's what he tries to do.
It's what he tries to do. But I'm hoping at one point, if you don't realize it yet, you do realize it soon, that they do not want to have conversation. The conversation that they want to start is, I am correct, and if you don't think so, you are evil. That is their conversation. So the sooner you realize that, the sooner you might become a little jaded, but the sooner you realize that these things can be conversations we have. Like you just said, kids are going through a lot right now. And especially if they feel like they were born in the wrong body, especially if they feel like they're not actually a boy or they're not actually a girl, they need to actually sit down and talk with them a lot. They need the help there. But the issue is, we are not having the conversation. We are pushing them through into what some people think apparently is the best for them without ever actually having a conversation about it. Do not listen to the people that tell you to start a conversation. Listen to the people that will sit down and talk with you.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode. I know it was a few days late, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Please go watch What is a Woman, support the Daily Wire and groups like that, support the Blaze, support any of your favorite groups. You know what? I don't give a fuck if they're on the left. Just support what you support, but please try and branch out as well. I mean, if you support Washington Post or New York Times, you're not reading anything positive anyway. Washington Post is fucking Taylor Lorenz and Felicia Simmons, whatever her name is.
They got rid of her.
They got rid of Felicia?
They got rid of her.
Bye, Felicia. Well, she was harassing everybody on WAPO. Like only Taylor Lorenz has that clout to just harass and lie about everything. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent. But please go watch this. I think it's important, whether you're on the left or the right, just go and watch it. It's good. And Daily Wire, make it free, goddammit. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go follow socials. The Alex Weston Show. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.